drank until I don't remember and woke up with his best friend. Then he did this. Hey Reddit, this is my first time posting on here, so I'm not really sure if I'm doing this right. But I need a place where I can rant freely and hopefully get some opinions to help me talk to my husband and show him that he's completely in the wrong here, and that he's making a huge deal out of something that I really think he should just understand and move on from. So let me give you all a little bit of backstory so you know where I'm coming from. My name is Veronica, I'm 30, and my husband Jordan is also 30. We've been together for about 3 years now, and honestly, I think we've always been a great couple. I've put a lot into making this relationship amazing, and I'm the kind of person who naturally attracts attention, both good and bad. I know that people get jealous of my life. I mean, my life is pretty much perfect, so I can't really blame them. I have a stable job, a beautiful home, a husband who adores me most of the time, and well, I'm just someone who stands out. I'm smart, I'm attractive, and I know how to carry myself in any situation. That kind of confidence doesn't always sit well with others. But the way I see it, that's more their problem than mine. Not everyone has it this great. And if people feel threatened by that, then that's on them. Jordan and I complement each other well. He's got that steady, dependable thing going for him. He's always there to listen, always making sure I'm comfortable, and he just loves to dote on me. He'd never admit it out loud, but I know he'd do anything to keep me happy. He should trust me by now. He knows I'm loyal to him. But sometimes his need to be involved in everything I do can feel a bit clingy, if I'm being honest. I'm not some fragile doll. I need a little freedom to breathe, to go out and have fun without being questioned or judged. I made a little mistake, I'll admit. But again, I really think this is something that Jordan can easily get over. It's not like I planned any of this, and it's not like he didn't know who I was before we got together. So here's what happened. It was my husband's best friend's birthday party. Let's call him Jake. Jake decided to have a celebration at his place. A casual thing, just friends, music, and a lot of booze. You know, fun. Obviously, Jordan and I were there. It's his best friend's party after all. I wasn't about to miss it, especially since Jake knows how to throw a good time. Now here's where things started going off track. I wasn't drinking much at first while Jordan was around, and I was doing it out of respect for him. We've had endless conversations about my drinking lately. He thinks I'm overdoing it and keeps pushing me to cut back. According to him, I'm on a slippery slope and turning into an alcoholic, which is honestly such an exaggeration. But he's been putting this ridiculous pressure on me to be more responsible about it, so sure, I played along while he was there. But Jordan wanted to leave early. He wanted to go home while he was still sober, and I get it. He's not the party type like me. The guy's idea of fun is a quiet night with Netflix and takeout, while I thrive on a good party. I told him I wanted to stay because, to me, the party was just starting to get interesting. Since we were with friends and Jake was hosting, Jordan figured it was safe for me to stay, so he left. Jake even promised Jordan he'd drop me off at home or find someone else who could if he couldn't. It was all planned out, really. Nothing to worry about. So there I was, finally free to enjoy myself. After Jordan left, I started drinking a lot more. Just unwinding, really. I'm not going to apologize for having fun. It's not like I do this every day. I know I messed up, but you can't really blame me for what happened next. Alcohol has a way of making everything seem different, looser, freer. I wasn't in control. The drinks were, and it's not like I was the only one drinking. Jake was drinking a lot too. As the night went on, people gradually started leaving. Eventually, it was just the two of us, Jake and me. Now looking back, I know I should have left, but hindsight is 20/20, right? I can't remember everything that happened. Honestly, the details are fuzzy at best. I do remember laughing, feeling good, and maybe I started flirting with him a little. I mean, Jake's always been easy to talk to, and I'll be real. I've always thought he was kind of cute. Nothing wrong with a little harmless attraction, right? Well, apparently things escalated. The next morning, I woke up in his bed beside him, and I'll spare you the details, but yeah, it was clear we'd crossed a line. I was shocked, sure, but it's not like I intended for any of this to happen. It was the alcohol, not me. But of course, Jordan doesn't see it that way. He's acting like I did this on purpose, like I wanted this to happen, which is just ridiculous. I was horrified when I woke up. Jake was horrified. I mean, sure, it wasn't really my fault. Alcohol does things to people, and I didn't plan on ending up in his bed. But still, waking up like that was not something I wanted or expected. The morning light made everything feel way too real, and we both just kind of sat there in this horrible, silent shock. It was uncomfortable, to say the least. Awkwardly, I started searching for my clothes scattered across the floor, pulling them on as I tried to get my bearings. My phone was right beside my jeans. and when I picked it up, I saw the notifications piling up. Jordan had messaged me a couple of times and even tried calling. Guess he must have been worried. I glanced over at Jake, who was also checking his phone, and of course, Jordan had called and texted him too. But neither of us said anything about the, obvious. We were avoiding it like the plague, just pretending the whole thing hadn't happened. When I finally got home, I went straight to Jordan and, without missing a beat, told him I'd had too much to drink. It wasn't a lie, technically. I had overdone it. Sure, it wasn't the whole truth, but it was close enough to keep things simple. I knew he'd be angry about the drinking alone, and there was no way I was about to tell him what really happened. He didn't need to know that. That would just make everything a million times worse, and it wasn't like I intended to hurt him. Jordan, of course, was furious about the drinking. He went on and on about how he'd been right all along, saying this was proof I needed to cut back. He started lecturing me about attending alcohol meetings, going on about how he's worried about me, that he's concerned for my health and all that. I apologized, sure, just to make him feel like I was hearing him out. I even told him he was right, something he absolutely loves to hear, and that seemed to be enough to calm him down a bit. Crisis averted. I figured it was the best way to handle things, and besides, this way he wouldn't dig deeper. Over the next few days, Jake and I didn't talk at all. We basically avoided each other like we had some unspoken agreement not to bring up what happened. In fact, we even hung out as a group with Jordan, and Jake and I just kept it cool. We avoided each other's eyes and acted like everything was normal. It was a little awkward, sure, but we both knew it was better this way. Then a few days later, I finally got a message from Jake. He didn't say much. He just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. I told him I'd really appreciate it if he kept this whole thing between us and didn't breathe a word to Jordan, or to anyone else for that matter. Jake agreed without any hesitation, saying he had no intention of messing up his friendship with Jordan. It was a win-win, really. Neither of us wanted to ruin what we had in our own lives, so keeping quiet was the obvious solution. I know this might make me sound like a horrible person, but sometimes self-preservation comes first. I didn't want to risk my marriage over one drunken night that I didn't even plan. So we decided to keep Jordan in the dark. I honestly thought that was going to be the end of it. As far as I was concerned, it was a closed chapter. We'd both moved on, and I had no intention of revisiting it. After a few weeks had passed, I felt a huge sense of relief, like this weight had finally lifted off my shoulders. It was like everything had gone back to normal. I started to relax around Jordan again, and I wasn't so paranoid whenever he mentioned Jake's name. In fact, I started acting like nothing had even happened. And honestly, it felt kind of good. I'm not saying it was some life-changing moment, but knowing I'd shared this intense secret connection with Jake, that gave me a strange thrill. There was something exhilarating about having this little piece of hidden knowledge that Jordan knew nothing about. It even made me feel alive in a way that I hadn't in years. And honestly, it's not like Jordan's some saint. I've overlooked his shortcomings time and again, all his little mistakes and moments where he fell short as a husband. So in a twisted way, I felt like I was balancing the scales. But then Jake started acting like an idiot. At first, he seemed totally on board with keeping this between us. But all of a sudden, he starts texting me at weird times, dropping hints about catching up or talking about that night. He even hinted at wanting to see me alone, saying we should figure out what this all means. Figure out what this all means. As if it has to mean anything at all. I thought he was smart enough to understand the situation, that it was a one-time thing, just a moment between us that we would keep buried and move on from. But no, Jake apparently had other ideas. I played along with Jake's demands, reluctantly at first, but really, what choice did I have? I didn't want him going to Jordan with any of this, so I figured it was easier just to keep him happy and keep the secret safe. But I won't lie, Jake's stupidity was grating. I should have known better than to think he could handle something like this maturely. First, it was the constant texting, like he thought we were in some sort of secret relationship or something. He kept asking to hang out alone or for another night together, and it was so transparent. It was like he didn't get that this wasn't some kind of romantic affair. It was a one-time thing that happened by accident. But apparently Jake had different ideas. Soon he started getting bolder, asking me for money here and there with little excuses like he was short this month or needed a bit for a bill. I went along with it at first, thinking that if a bit of cash would keep him quiet, then it was a small price to pay. Besides, he wasn't asking for much, and I figured he'd lose interest eventually. And I can't lie, the attraction I felt for him wasn't entirely gone, so when he started asking for other things, I didn't exactly say no. There was still that thrill, The thrill that came from knowing I was doing something I wasn't supposed to. The excitement of sneaking around. Plus, I convinced myself that I was practically doing Jordan a favor by keeping this whole thing under wraps. Why ruin his peace of mind over something he'd never know? What he didn't know wouldn't hurt him. And frankly, I was saving him the pain of knowing his wife had been with his best friend. So guilt? Pointless. I didn't feel any. I was in control, managing everything just fine. Okay. At first, I thought Jake would be satisfied with the little things I was doing to keep him happy. The money, the occasional hookup. But as time went on, he kept pushing, kept asking for more, and his demands started to feel entitled. It was like he thought he had power over me, and I hated that. It was like Jake thought he owned me, using that one night as leverage for whatever he wanted. Every request got more ridiculous, and his demands started feeling less like favors and more like some sick game he was playing, like he was testing how far he could push me. His entitlement just kept growing, and honestly, I'd had enough. I couldn't stand the thought of him holding something over me like that, and I finally snapped. I told him I was done. I wasn't going to give him anything else, and if he wanted to tell Jordan, then he could go right ahead. But I knew I had to get ahead of this. If anyone was going to break this to Jordan, it was going to be me. So I sat him down, put on my best apologetic act, and made Jake out to be the manipulative one. I mean, it wasn't like I was lying. He really had been making it impossible. I told Jordan about the party, about drinking too much, and about how Jake had taken advantage of the situation. I conveniently left out the parts about the favors, of course. Those were details he didn't need to know. Jordan was shell-shocked. For a minute, I think he genuinely thought I was joking or pulling some weird prank. He kept asking if this was some test to see how he'd react. But it wasn't, and I could tell that once he understood that, something broke inside him. He looked at me like I was someone he didn't even know. Then he asked to see my phone. I was caught so off guard, and before I could even think of an excuse, I just handed it over, hoping he'd scroll past anything incriminating. But of course, I hadn't deleted Jake's messages, the ones where he was practically listing out what he expected from me. Jordan's expression went from shock to disgust. He read every single message, and I could see the disappointment turning into full-blown rage. He asked me how long I'd been lying, how long I'd let Jake walk all over our marriage like this. And in that moment, I realized I'd completely lost control of the situation. I reached for my phone, but he pulled it away, practically throwing it at me in disgust. The argument that followed was brutal. He said things I never expected him to say, accused me of betrayal, and refused to believe any excuse I tried to throw out there. And then he did what I'd never imagined he would. He told me to leave. He said he couldn't even look at me and that he needed me out of his sight. He kicked me out of our house, and I was left there in total shock, trying to process that he was actually doing this. With nowhere else to go, I headed over to Jake's, thinking he'd at least let me crash for the night. But when I got there, he wouldn't even open the door. Turns out Jordan had already called him, furious, and Jake was backpedaling as fast as he could. He said I was stupid for telling Jordan and that he'd only been bluffing when he threatened to tell him. So here I am, realizing I blew up my entire life for nothing. I lost Jordan over this mess, and Jake won't even speak to me. I've been crashing at my parents' place, and they're less than thrilled. We never had the best relationship, and they're making it clear that they're disappointed in me too. Honestly, I don't know what to do now. I feel betrayed and completely alone. I know Jordan is overreacting, and he should see that me coming clean shows how much I cared about him. I was trying to save our relationship by being honest. I think he's being unreasonable, and Jake's the one at fault here, not me. Update. Hello, Reddit. So, I'll just say it right off the bat. Thanks for nothing. Honestly, I didn't come here expecting flowers and applause, but I at least thought maybe, just maybe, I'd get some advice. I mean, a few useful tips on what to do next, how to handle things with Jordan, or maybe even just a little support. But nope, all I got was a bunch of insults. Some of you clearly live for this drama and seem more invested in bashing me than actually helping, which is exactly why I shouldn't have bothered with Reddit. It's honestly like the worst of all social media sometimes. But you know what? Since you all seem so invested in my life and clearly can't look away, I'll keep sharing updates. It's actually kind of nice to have a place to rant, so here goes. First things first, I'm still at my parents' place. It's been awkward, to say the least. They're avoiding me as much as possible, and it's painfully obvious they want me out, but don't know how to do it. I know they don't want me here any more than I want to be here, but they know I don't have a job, and if they kick me out, I'll be homeless. Even though we don't get along, I think they're at least reluctant to throw me out on the street. And even if they did try, I'd probably guilt trip them into letting me stay. I mean, where else am I going to go? I don't have the money to move out or put my things in storage, and I'm certainly not about to toss my stuff in the trash. So here I am, stuck in this awkward limbo. Meanwhile, Jordan is making it crystal clear he's done with me. And honestly, it's getting suspicious. The way he's rushing this whole thing makes me wonder if he's already got someone else lined up. Maybe he's been cheating on me and just wants me out so he can move in his new friend. I mean, I made one mistake. Okay, maybe a little more than one, but still, it was a first for me. So why is he blowing this up like it's the end of the world? Every conversation we have now is him telling me he's sending his lawyer after me and that any communication should go through them. He's seriously going all out to push me out of his life as quickly as possible, and it's exhausting. And speaking of exhausting, let's talk about my job, or rather, my former job. I recently got fired, and it came completely out of nowhere. I'm 80% sure Jordan had something to do with it. He got me that job in the first place, so it's not a stretch to think he'd have enough pull to make sure I lost it. He even hinted at it once on the phone, telling me he'd make sure I paid for cheating on him. Then out of nowhere, I'm suddenly out of work. It's not like I had much in savings anyway, especially since Jordan emptied our joint account. So now I'm jobless, broke, and basically stranded at my parents' place. I'm starting to wonder if I have any legal grounds here. Maybe I could sue him. If I could find a lawyer willing to take the case on contingency, it might be worth a shot. Does anyone here actually know if I have a case? On a slightly more positive note, I heard through the grapevine that Jake also got fired. And honestly, good riddance. Since he refused to let me stay at his place after Jordan kicked me out, I've blocked him from everything. But knowing he's now out of a job, too, feels like a bit of karma. Apparently, he's panicking because he has zero savings. So we're both in a mess right now, but at least I know he's not any better off. So yeah, that's my life right now. Let's see if any of you have anything useful to say this time. Update. So hey, I guess, whatever. I've been getting a bunch of direct messages from people asking for an update, so here's one. Unfortunately, things aren't really going as well as I'd hoped. First off, I went to consult a lawyer like I said I would. Turns out I'm not going to be able to sue after all. The lawyer bluntly told me I didn't have much of a case, especially since I don't have any actual proof or evidence that Jordan tried to get me fired. I even tried to bait him by texting him, hoping he'd slip up or hint at it somehow. But he played it cool and just acted like he had no idea what I was talking about. So yeah, that idea is dead in the water. It's annoying, but whatever. I'll just have to get another job and move on. Speaking of jobs, I've been job searching, and let me tell you, it's exhausting. I forgot how annoying this process is. But I don't really have a choice unless I want to be homeless and broke. My parents, for one, are making that very clear. They literally sat me down and told me that they want me to start paying rent and contributing to the bills. My own parents. Can you believe that? They know I'm in a tough spot, yet they're asking their own child for rent. I was shocked, but at the same time, I can't really argue with them because honestly, I don't have anywhere else to go. So I agreed, but only once I get a job. I don't have any choice. And as if that wasn't enough, I officially got served by Jordan's lawyer. So I guess he's really pushing forward with the divorce. Great. Honestly, I'm just over it at this point. I used to think I cared, but now I don't even know. He's being ridiculous, and it's honestly his fault we're in this mess. He's so self-righteous, not even trying to understand that my actions weren't entirely my fault. He knows how I can get when alcohol's involved, yet here he is, making a huge deal out of one mistake. Looking back, I guess I should have known he'd be like this. Jordan's always been a pretty insensitive person, never really great at putting himself in other people's shoes. So yeah, I guess he's just showing his true colors. Whatever. I'm done wasting energy on him. I'll get my life back together with or without his help. Update. Hey, it's been a while. I actually kind of forgot about this whole post until I randomly saw my own story on TikTok. There were some really harsh comments, and of course everyone's blaming me, tearing me down, throwing all kinds of insults. I guess I expected it, but it still stings. Honestly, I've been so busy just trying to survive that I haven't had much time to think about anything else. My life hasn't been on the track I wanted it to be, and it's all starting to hit me. I've come to realize just how wrong I was and how much I contributed to my own downfall. The wake-up call really hit me after the divorce was finalized. I didn't get anything. No spousal support, no financial help, nothing. Apparently, I didn't qualify because I was able-bodied and had held a job at one point, and our marriage wasn't long enough. So just like that, it was over. Jordan cut me out of his life completely, as if I meant nothing to him, and it honestly shocked me. It was a huge slap in the face, and for the first time I started reaching out, trying to get through to him. I told him that now that the divorce was finalized, maybe we could start over and rebuild things, but he's ignored every single one of my attempts to communicate. I don't know what to do. I finally come to terms with the fact that this was all my fault, and Jordan really had no part in it. I threw everything away, and now I'm paying the price. To make things worse, I still haven't been able to get a job, not a single one in months. I can't help but wonder if maybe Jordan blacklisted me. We work in the same industry, and he has influence. It's a very competitive field, and getting a job without connections is hard enough as it is. So if he did blacklist me, it would explain a lot. Then my parents kicked me out. They were tired of waiting for me to get my life together, and I don't blame them. But now I'm completely on my own. I've been couch surfing, staying in homeless shelters, and even sleeping on the streets some nights. I've sold everything I could, anything that had any value, because I couldn't afford to keep it in storage, and I figured I might as well use the money for something useful. I even started a GoFundMe, but it didn't get much traction. It's like people don't even want to help anymore. I'm literally at rock bottom. Some days I can barely even afford food, and all I can think about is trying to save up enough for a cheap car so I can at least sleep in it. I honestly never thought I'd be in a position where I'd even consider working minimum wage, but now I'd be grateful for anything. I've been applying to fast food places and any job that comes up, even if it's barely enough to get by. What's even harder to accept is that nobody has any sympathy for me. Not my parents, not my friends. Nobody. I know I did this to myself, but it's still so hard to face this alone. I guess that's my life now. I'll probably get mocked even more for posting this, but at this point, I don't care. I know I've been selfish and made terrible choices, and I'm facing the consequences every single day.